Welcome to a new type of draft video. I'm gonna call it bite-sized drafts until I actually figure out a better word for it. I'll have a pre-recording of my draft. I'll do a quick voiceover over each of the picks. Bam, bam, bam. Do a quick outro about how the actual games went, but just a recap. That way we can have a more digestible drafting experience for the majority of audiences that don't have the time to dedicate to an hour and a half long video. Please, please, please let me know down in the comments if you like this type of content. I want to put out content that you guys find relevant and enjoyable, and I feel like this would be a really interesting and different way of presenting draft content. So we opened up Toxicology. Really, this rare is just 2 cost, deal 2 to something. You can pitch a card to actually kill it. Really not super strong for a rare. In this pack, other than the rare that comes to mind, are Goombo's Platoon and then the Mind Broken Cobbler. And I've really noticed in Eternal Unleashed, a lot of the power level is held in the uncommon cards versus the common cards. That not always true, as you see a couple of our Time Unleashed cards here, but in general, it's a good rule of thumb. So we end up picking up the Mind Broken Cobbler, really strong unit to start off the draft. Pack 2, this was relatively weak pack. We have a Huru Agent, but obviously way too early to kind of commit to a dual faction card. Nevermore is okay primal removal, but nothing crazy. But you have the absolutely legendary common of the set, Insect Swarm. This is where that common uncommon rule breaks down a lot. Insect Swarm, the card plays out way stronger than you'd think and always overperforms. So we go with the Insect Swarm here. So for pack 3, the only things that stood out here are Maniacal Reveler, which is an okay time card, but it keeps us time so we can play the Insect Swarm, or Zealot of Shavkan. Really just efficient 2 cost 2/2 that can trigger Frenzy. We just take the Maniacal Reveler here. We really, I'm telling you, Insect Swarm's busted, so we really want to play that. You're gonna notice a very similar story here. The cards I was really looking at was Arcanum Orb and Court Repairman. Rebel Sharpshooter's fine, Suspicion's fine, but we go with the Orb here, so, we gotta get that Insect Swarm in the deck. So this pack didn't have a lot in it. The only things I was thinking about are maybe some of the fire cards. I wasn't super thrilled about pairing Fire, which has heavy Frenzy themes, with Time, which doesn't have too many ways to activate Frenzy. So we go with Consuming Greed here on the off chance we end up Xenon, and it has synergies with some of the Time relics we can pick up. Pack 6 here, once again, not a lot here to pull us in any direction. Sticky Fingers is an okay way of triggering Frenzy repeatably, but once again, we don't really want to pair that with Time, and that's where we have a really strong card. So we go with a second Arcanum Orb. Once again, the maximum power and potentially relic synergies down the way. This is similar line here. Now we're starting to see some Justice signals, a lot of Justice cards still in the pack. However, I've been much preferring to stay really heavy in one faction. That way gives us the maximum amount of time to identify the empty lane later on in the draft. If we see strong cards in other factions, we can go into that open color. So we take the Happy Harvester here. I have 2 choices. I can either take the first Justice card since we were seeing Justice signals, or take Nevermore, which is fine removal that usually does the trick. And since we already had a strong primal card, I ended up picking up the Nevermore. This is a closer decision because if Justice is wide open in the following packs, we could miss a chance to go into there, but I like Nevermore as getting some removal. We take our first Seek Power. I like having it at least 1 copy of it in our pool in case we're splashing. Here we take the 2-drop, nothing interesting. Here we'll take the Covenant Peacekeeper, and once again we're seeing all the Justice cards. So our options here, we're looking at the Borderlands Waykeeper. Remember, a good short hint, a lot of the uncommon cards in this set is where the power level is, or a second Insect Swarm. Can you guys guess what we go with here? We take the second Insect Swarm. This was a tough pack. We have two strong primal cards here in Borderlands Waykeeper and Thunderpop. Still seeing Minotaur Tailor I really like as a strong justice unit. But once again, I try to think about it about what cards do I already have in that faction, and Borderlands Waykeeper along with Mindbroken, Cobbler, and Nevermore I find as much stronger than a Tailor and Peacekeeper with a Midnight Tinker for our justice. So once again, just taking the strongest card in the faction that gives us the most playable cards. So this pack was mainly a decision between Pin the Jotun or Questioning Devotee. Since Devotee can return a unit to the hand, our opponents or ours, I wanted that synergy with our Insect Swarms and any other Unleash units we draw. We have another option for Pin the Jotun or an Enraged Serpent. We end up going with the Enraged Serpent here, and at this point I basically decided we're going to be Time and Primal. Little Brother is just not a card we'll play. You guys know I don't like playing 1-cost 1/1s unless they have a very strong ability or some strong synergy. There is a Party Crasher in the pack, which is a okay role player unit in Fire, but we decided to take the Skycrag Tome just in case there's a Fire card we want to splash later. This pack, we have a Thunderpop or a Grumbo's Platoon. That's the only thing it's between here. Unleashed has been overperforming, especially on these cheap time units. Take our first Grumbo's Platoon here over the Thunderpop. So right here, I thought about taking the Grizzled Hermit just in case, but it's not amazing on the splash. It could give you some reach. Instead, I take the Scaly Dinosaur here. It's just a dirtily 1/4. I don't usually like it, but this was playing out to be a deck where we just want to win in the air with either Enraged Serpent or a million Insect Swarms. Even our Borderlands Waykeeper can turn into a flyer, so we go with the dorky Dinosaur. Here, we take our first Pin the Jotun. The draft really wants us to take Pin the Jotun, so we take our first copy here. An Ice Glider, fairly simple. There's nothing else for us in the pack. Nevermore as another okay removal spell is the pick here. Decay and Hydrate are just not cards you want to put in your deck. We take the uncommon here. We aren't playing Little Brother, and then just last pick Reverberating Strike. First pack of Cold Hunt now. Cold Hunt has a lot of strong cards in it. We see 3 cards we're actually really happy here. The Torgov's Wares, Kickflip Monk, but Cloudline Shaman is just a savage card. Puts you so far ahead, even with the Contract 4 debt, which is pretty steep, but just getting that much power and health, and 3 of it in the air is just so strong. So nothing else in this pack for us besides a Nascent Wisps, and I'm just not a fan of this card. We take a Praxis Tome here, and if you're paying attention, that's the second dual faction tome we have that can produce fire, giving us a potential way to splash a fire card. This was an interesting pack. We have a lot of options here. Torgov's Wear, Trick Throw for some cheaper removal. There's a Caustic Rain and an Arcanum Seeker. This was tough. I heavily debated Caustic Rain, but it killed too much of our Unleash units. It was just too big a non-bow with one of the strongest portions of our deck. So we end up going with a Trick Throw here. We needed a little cheaper removal since this format seems to be a little more aggressive. And here we go. We get a Torque Ballistics Crafter, which is a fire card, and now we have a Seek Power and 2 fire-producing tomes that we're able to splash it with. This card gets us a Snowball. There's a lot of 1 health units in the set, and it could buff all of our damage spells. Perfect rare to pick up, and we had the perfect tomes to actually splash it. So this was a tough decision between the Breath or Thudruck's Ruse or Trick Throw. I end up going with Trick Throw. Have some spell damage synergies that it goes well with. So here, another decision putting us to the test. We have a Stormblast here, but there's a Caldera Captain, which synergizes well with a bunch of Unleash things, especially all the Insect Swarms in the air. Giving them all +1 power is just absolutely busted. And it's a fire card, which we're set up to splash. So we take a Calderan Captain here and are super happy about it. This is a pretty easy warning shot, since the Inscribe will also help us with the splash for the 2 fire cards we picked up, and it is also spell damage synergy with our rare. Here was another tough choice. We have 2 different Fire Inscribe cards here. Out of those, I would have taken Molten Feet, but I thought we could still use some top end, and Warrior Monk with its contract allows us to just have a big dork on the ground to finish the game, or give us a little health buffer so we have time to win in the air. We get a Ice Over Inscribe card, easy pick. Vow of Silence, another Inscribe card in our factions, and then a last pick Snoping. You see me waving the cursor. That was a card I would have picked much earlier in the pack, and we ended up getting it last. So here we open up this Primal Rare, which I've never seen before, and it's just amazing. It's essentially just a 4-cost 4/4 with Overwhelm in our deck, but it also has Unleash. So if we got to 8 power, you can play 2 copies of this thing, which gives the first one +2/+2. It's just crazy. So easy first pickable rare here. Okay, this pack here, not too much for us. Happy Harvester, the Dinosaur, or the rare would help with splashing, and I just want some copies for my collection, but we're going to take Jotun Runt here. Really strong if you get to flip it, and since we have a lot of Unleash units, that can help attack with multiple things to get them to flip, and if you transform it, it turns into a 5/5 with Aegis with an absolutely great effect. So easy pickup here. Pack, nothing too crazy. We could just get another Dinosaur here to fill out the later portion of our curve. I decided to go with Sleight of Hand. Card draw at fast spell speed, pretty decent, and can help us refill and get to our stronger cards. Next pack here, we have a pretty decent 6-drop here in the uncommon Enraged Tower Tall. It's just a Dirtle that grows, and your cards can't be silenced. It's just kind of a gravy effect. So here, nothing for us. We take Sleight of Hand here. This pack, I actually don't mind a Backlash for my deck. A lot of times in these games, it can come down to one ill-timed spell from your opponent, and just being able to negate it and deal damage to them can totally finish the games. So nothing for us here. We already picked up a Reverberating Strike earlier. Decay's no good, so we just take the uncommon Hour of Makar. This pack, nothing really for us, so we just take the premium here. We're getting towards the end of the pack. Once again, we aren't playing Strike It Rich, so we just take the premium. All of this we aren't going to play, so just take the last few cards. Nothing too crazy. And then a Viper's Bite that's definitely not making the deck. So this is the final build of the deck. 45 cards. We end up going with 16 sigils since we do want to get higher maximum power, since we have 2 Insect Swarms and the platoon here. So we really want to get to 6 or 8 reliably. All in all, this deck's absolutely nuts. We have really strong cards, 2 Insect Swarms, some strong uncommons, Cloudline Shaman, the Captain, which synergizes with our Insect Swarm, and the platoon, Pork, the Carnivorous Terror. Our removal, not great. I was super excited to get into some games. TLDR, I hate to say it, we ended up going 3-3. We ran up into a Huru Sentry, the rare from Cold Hunt, on curve that our opponent just had all the interaction possible to keep it alive, and that thing just slammed us out of the game. The other loss was to a Feral Serpent on curve, being buffed by Majestic Skies, so they had a turn 3 5/5 flyer with Aegis. We would have been able to deal with it if it didn't have the +1/+1 buff with our 2/3 flyer and 2 Insect Swarms blocking. But since it just had that +1/+1, it absolutely wrecked us. The third loss was hard-fought, nail-biting race. Our opponent just got there. And our 3 wins were all almost instant concessions at different spots with Insect Swarm. One of which, the Calderon Captain. We just had 4 2/1 flyers. Absolutely ridiculous. I was upset. I thought this deck was by far the strongest deck I've drafted in the format. We went 3-3. That's how it goes sometimes. I hope you guys enjoyed. I hope you like, comment, and subscribe if you like this new type of draft video, and I hope I'll catch you on the channel for more Eternal Unleashed limited content. Peace.